Hello, fellow Americans, and welcome to today's urgent discussion. You know, it's no secret that prices at the grocery store are creeping up, and for some of your favorite items, they're not just creeping, they're set to skyrocket. Today, we're diving deep into why exactly that's happening. We've got everything from Mother Nature throwing curveballs that affect crop yields to economic shifts that ripple through our markets. And let's not forget the changing tastes and preferences of consumers like you and me. These factors are all coming together in a perfect storm to potentially double the prices of some essential grocery items in the near future. Folks, we need to talk about something as basic as oats and oat-based products. Now, I know you might be thinking, what's the big deal with oats? But hear me out, because this isn't just about your morning oatmeal or that oat milk latte you love. It's about the future of our food supply and your wallet. You see, oats are becoming a big deal, especially with the booming plant-based diet trend. Products like oat milk have exploded in popularity, and that's putting a real strain on our oat supplies. We're talking about a surge in demand that the current supply chain is struggling to meet. It's not just about more folks eating oats, it's about the entire industry having to scale up, and that's not as easy as it sounds. Now, most oats grow in cooler climates, places like Canada, the US, and parts of Europe. But here's the kicker. Weather patterns are changing. We've got extreme temperatures, unexpected droughts. Just ask our Canadian friends up north who are seeing their oat yields hit hard by severe drought conditions. This isn't just bad news for the farmers. It's bad news for anyone who enjoys oats, because it means lower quality and higher prices. And it's not just about growing the oats. Once they're harvested, storing and processing them is a whole other ballgame. Oats are sensitive to moisture and pests, requiring top-notch storage solutions to keep them fresh. But with rising global energy costs, maintaining these conditions is getting more expensive by the day. So what happens when every step from farm to table gets pricier? You guessed it, higher prices at your local grocery store. We're talking about everything from your basic oatmeal to those fancy oat-based snacks and protein bars. Each step in processing and distribution adds up, especially with transportation costs climbing due to higher fuel prices. Folks, let's buckle up and dive into another critical staple that's hitting some turbulent waters: lentils and legumes. These humble beans, including chickpeas, black beans, and kidney beans, pack a serious punch with their high protein, fiber, and nutrient content. But I'll tell you right now, we're staring down the barrel of some substantial price hikes, and here's why. First off, the major growing areas for these crops, places like Canada, India, and Australia, are getting hammered by climate instability. We're talking severe droughts, erratic rainfall, and wild temperature swings. These conditions are wreaking havoc on the lentil and legume harvests, particularly during the critical flowering and pod-filling stages. When these plants get stressed, they produce smaller, lower-quality yields, which pushes prices up, not just a little but a lot. But hold on, it gets more complicated. The costs of fertilizers and pesticides, which are essential for keeping these crops thriving, have skyrocketed. Thanks to supply chain snarls and rising global energy prices, farmers are feeling the pinch. And don't forget labor shortages. Since many of these beans are harvested by hand, fewer workers means higher costs all around. And here's a kicker. The demand for plant-based proteins is through the roof. More folks than ever are turning away from meat, opting instead for plant-based alternatives. Lentils and chickpeas are front and center in this shift, finding their way into everything from lentil pasta to meatless burgers. This surge in popularity is stretching already thin supplies even thinner, folks. Storage and transport are no small issues either. These legumes need to be kept dry and cool to prevent spoilage, but with energy costs climbing, maintaining these conditions is costing a pretty penny. Plus, let's not overlook the impact of export regulations. Some countries are clamping down on exports to keep their domestic markets stable, but this limits global supply and jacks up prices even more. Folks, let's pour ourselves a glass and talk about something near and dear to many of our hearts: wine. Now, as much as we all love a good vintage, the wine industry is facing some real headwinds that are driving prices up. And it's not just about the fancy labels or aging in oak barrels. We're looking at a mix of environmental, technological, and market challenges that are changing the landscape of wine production. First up, water scarcity. Vineyards, especially in iconic regions like California, Spain, and Italy, are getting hit hard by droughts. To combat this, wineries are turning to high-tech solutions like drip irrigation, which delivers water right to the roots of the vines with precision. But folks, these systems aren't cheap. They require a big upfront investment and ongoing maintenance, all of which adds to the cost of your bottle of wine. Then there's the shift in consumer demand. More and more people are clamoring for organic and biodynamic wines made without synthetic chemicals. Transitioning to these practices isn't something that happens overnight. It takes years to get soils back to their natural state and achieve organic certification. And instead of spraying pesticides, these vineyards are pulling weeds by hand or using natural predators to handle pests. As you can imagine, all this extra labor costs a bundle. Now let's talk tech. Modern wineries are using drones, satellite images, and data analytics to keep an eye on their vines. These tools help monitor vine health, optimize water usage, and even predict the best time to harvest. While this tech improves quality, it's another line item on the budget that wasn't there a few decades ago. Climate change is another beast altogether. Wineries are experimenting with new grape varieties that can withstand the rigors of a changing climate. More heat, more pests, more unpredictable weather. Developing these new varieties is a gamble, and it involves a lot of trial and error, not to mention replanting entire vineyards. And let's not forget the impact of international trade. Tariffs, duties, you name it. If a wine crosses a border, it's likely racking up extra costs and taxes and fees. This makes foreign wines more expensive and can really pinch the winemakers who rely on selling abroad. All right, folks, gather around because it's time to talk about something that's a staple in almost every American kitchen: peanuts and peanut butter. Now, you might not think twice when you spread that peanut butter on your toast in the morning, but let me tell you, there's a storm brewing in the world of peanuts that's starting to hit our wallets. Peanuts are a bit finicky about their growing conditions. They like it warm with just the right amount of rain. But here's the catch. Major peanut growing areas like the southeastern US and parts of Africa are seeing more droughts and less predictable weather. This messes with the crop yields big time. Even a little water stress at the wrong time can slash the amount of peanuts a farmer can grow. To fight back against Mother Nature's mood swings, our farmers are digging deep into their pockets for irrigation systems. These aren't cheap, and you better believe those costs trickle down to what you're paying at the store. But it's not just the weather giving us grief. Peanuts have their fair share of pests and diseases. Things like leaf spot and worse, aflatoxin, a toxin that can make peanuts downright dangerous to eat if it gets out of hand. Keeping these threats at bay means more money spent on fungicides and monitoring the crops like a hawk. All these precautions? Yep, they add to the cost too. Now let's talk demand. With the whole world getting hip to plant-based proteins, peanuts are in the spotlight. They're packed with good stuff, healthy fats, fiber, protein, and they're cheaper than many other protein sources, especially in less developed regions. This has made peanuts super popular not just in peanut butter, but in all sorts of health foods from snack bars to energy bites. In the US, where we can throw machines at the problem, there's still the cost of fuel and maintaining all that equipment to consider. In places where they do things the old-fashioned way, labor costs can drive up prices too. And don't get me started on the global scene. Export restrictions, tariffs, these play a huge role in how much we pay for our peanut fix. On top of that, the price of the jars and containers we use to keep our peanut butter fresh has gone up thanks to supply chain headaches and raw material costs. Folks, let's tap into a topic that's as sweet as it is serious. Maple syrup. This beloved natural sweetener, a staple from Quebec to Vermont, is in a sticky situation. The production of maple syrup hinges on very specific climate conditions, cold nights that give way to warmer days. This temperature dance is crucial for the sap to flow, but as winters become milder and less predictable, the sap harvesting season is getting cut short, and yields are dropping. Now imagine waiting 40 years for a tree to mature enough to tap. That's the reality of maple syrup production. We can't just plant more trees and expect to solve the problem overnight. And while we're waiting, pests like the Asian longhorn beetle are wreaking havoc on our maple populations, chomping through bark and hindering sap production. producers are forced to spend more on pest control, pushing operational costs even higher. And let's not forget the labor involved in making this syrup. It takes about 40 liters of sap to boil down to just 1 liter of syrup. With rising fuel prices, the energy required for this process is becoming increasingly expensive, directly impacting the cost of the final product. As if local challenges weren't enough, global demand is soaring. Everyone wants a taste of this liquid gold, especially in Europe and Asia, putting even more pressure on an already strained supply chain. Delays in transport and higher export fees? You guessed it, they add to the final price tag. Switching gears to something a bit more tropical, coconuts. Coconuts are facing their own set of challenges, from aging trees in major producing countries like the Philippines and Indonesia to the impacts of climate change. Many of these trees are past their prime, and as they produce fewer coconuts, farmers face the costly task of replanting for future production. And then there are the pests and diseases. The coconut rhinoceros beetle and diseases like lethal yellowing are devastating crops, forcing producers to spend more on management and mitigation. But it's not just about battling pests. There's also a growing demand for sustainability and fair trade in the coconut industry. Meeting these standards isn't cheap. It requires farms to invest in everything from certifications to potentially overhauling their infrastructure to comply with eco-friendly practices. Each coconut product, whether it's oil, milk, flour, or sugar, involves specialized processing techniques. For example, producing virgin coconut oil through cold press extraction is incredibly labor-intensive, and coconut sugar derived from the sap of the tree requires careful, timely collection and processing, adding yet another layer of cost. Well, folks, as we wrap up today's discussion, it's clear that the pressures on our grocery bills are multifaceted and significant. From oats to peanuts, wine to maple syrup, and not forgetting coconuts, each of these staples is navigating a complex web of challenges. Climate change, shifting consumer demands, and technological advancements are just a few of the forces reshaping the way we produce and consume our food. As we face these challenges, it's crucial for us, as informed citizens and consumers, to consider the broader implications of our choices. Supporting local farmers, opting for sustainable and fair trade products, and understanding the real costs behind our food can make a difference. It's about being proactive, not just reactive. We need to advocate for policies that support sustainable agriculture and invest in technologies that help our farmers adapt and thrive in changing conditions. Remember, these issues aren't just numbers on a price tag. They're about the health of our planet and the future of our food supply. Let's take this knowledge and turn it into action. Whether it's by educating others, making thoughtful purchasing decisions, or simply spreading the word, every little bit helps. We're in this together, and together we can tackle these challenges head-on. Thanks for tuning in, and let's keep fighting the good fight for our wallets, our health, and our planet. Stay informed, stay prepared, and as always, stay resilient.